Welcome back to Between the Lines of Scripture, where we pause, reflect, and listen closely to the words of Jesus. I'm your host, Dennis Cole, and I'm excited to bring this message to you. Today, we step into a moment that shook the religious world of his time, a confrontation between human tradition and divine truth. Matthew chapter 5 records for us the Sermon on the Mount. Now, picture this scene. The multitudes seated on the mountainside, hanging on to every word from this man who speaks with such remarkable clarity and authority. They're farmers, laborers, peasants, Jews, Gentiles, mothers, scholars, all drawn to this teacher named Jesus. Among them stand the Pharisees, the respected teachers of the law, protectors of Scripture, but also guardians of an oral tradition, network of added rules, rituals, and customs meant to clarify the law, but instead they often cover it up. Let me give you some perspective. The Pharisees developed a vast, detailed interpretive tradition around the 613 commandments of the law that were handed down from God to Moses, expanding on those laws and how they applied to everyday life. By the time these traditions were compiled in the Mishnah around 200 AD, there were thousands of individual rulings, interpretations, and case applications. So, having said that, let's go back to the Sermon on the Mount. Then Jesus lifts his voice and he says, "You have heard it said." Those words, "you have heard it said," carried centuries of human interpretation and echoes of rabbis and teachers layering meaning upon meaning. But then comes his divine contrast. But I say unto you. With that phrase, Jesus isn't rejecting Moses, he's fulfilling him. He's peeling away man's additions to reveal the burning heart of God beneath the text. Between the lines of those commandments, he reveals mercy, justice, and truth. The Pharisees were repeating the traditions passed down through generations. They expanded the law into areas that was never a part of what was originally written. Jesus spoke with ultimate authority. And what was the source of his authority? Only this, and this is enough. If we believe, as Paul wrote in 2 Timothy 3:16, all scripture is given by the inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. With that in mind, and knowing that Jesus is God, then Jesus' authority came from the fact that he was the author of scripture. Therefore, he is the only one who could ever speak with his level of authority. So within his sermon, Jesus includes a list of comparisons. Let's take a look at scripture. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus speaks these words: "You've heard it said, 'Do not murder.' But I say, whoever harbors anger in his heart has already sinned. You heard it said, 'Do not commit adultery.' But I say, whoever looks with lust has already broken that covenant in spirit." You see, the oral tradition focused on the visible, what people did. Jesus focuses on the invisible, what the heart is. He's not abolishing the law, he's restoring it, calling his people back to its origin, the place where obedience is born out of love, not fear. When he says, "You leave the commandment of God and hold to the tradition of men," he exposes the tragedy of religion without relationship. When faith becomes formula, a ritual, when it replaces revelation. And if we're honest, that warning still echoes today. Because sometimes, even in our worship or our churches, we cling to the comfort of how we have always done things and forget why we do them at all. The Spirit of Christ still whispers, "Come back to the Word, capital W, as it was meant to be heard, alive and transformative." In other words, come back to Jesus and listen to Him. So, what's the truth that Jesus restores? Love over legalism, compassion over custom, transformation over tradition. When he says, "I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it," he is saying every word of Scripture finds its heartbeat in me. He is the fulfillment, the living word behind every written word. So here's our question today. Are we hearing what has been said through tradition, or are we hearing what Jesus is saying now through truth? I suggest that we don't just study the word, but listen for the heartbeat behind it. Let Jesus rewrite the tradition of your mind and bring you back to the simplicity of love. This has been Between the Lines of Scripture, and I thank you for joining me today. I'm Dennis Cole, and until next time, walk in truth and stay humble, and always listen between the lines. May God bless you and all that you do.